यथा वातवसात् सिन्धौ उत्पन्नः फेन बुद्बुदाः तथात्मनि समुद्भूतं संसारं क्षणभङ्गुरम् यथा वातवसात् सिन्धौ उत्पन्नः फेन बुद्बुदाः तथात्मनि समुद्भूतं संसारं क्षणभङ्गुरम्. Tries to give this example because people will have different opinion, even though they understand, they try to understand that okay, I understand everything, but I cannot accept that this diversified, manifold universe is from me, that too from one thing. How is it possible? So to highlight or to really make things easier, this particular example comes. If you observe that Fena Budbuda and that too where Sindhu. So if you look at in ocean, and of course you must see this thing in Indian Ocean mainly. Other oceans are very less because the force is not that much. So he says beautifully, when this Indian Ocean, this wave is being formed, and of course when more wind is being coming in contact, so a lot of bubbles created, and each bubble are different. So he says, this is the point he says, that bubble is created out of water in contact or in contact with air or because of air, either or you can take it. And also inside the bubble there is air. We'll see this example elaborately some other time. It will bring it. So that means the water is there, and when this air gets in, now because of the air there are different type of bubbles, and after some time what happens? If you observe, again all these bubbles, water bubbles, merges in the water, in the sea water, and the air is free. In fact, air was always free. While inside the water bubble, while making water bubble, please understand, everywhere air is free. So here he highlights very nicely that how this many types of bubbles are being created out of water. So also this ever-changing transitory world arises from the self, from me, from consciousness. And of course there are many other factors that will be seen in detail slowly. Next verse. Abhedo bhasate nityam vastu bhedo na bhasate dvidha tridhadi bhedoyam brahmatve paryavasyate. Abhedo bhasate nityam vastu bhedo na bhasate dvidha tridhadi bhedoyam brahmatve paryavasyate. So again he says beautifully that if you observe that there is no difference, there is no diversities, there is no difference between me and any other object, or there is no difference between one object and another object. If you look at Abhedo Bhasate Nityam, the non-differentiated, or this non-duality, that is me, always exist, because only there is one thing exist. And of course, Vastu Veda now Bhasate. So the differences between one object and another object doesn't exist. Go back to previous example, this Phena Budbud. So if you look at this water bubble, this water bubble, that water bubble, for a common child or common people, there is difference, smaller, bigger, this and that. But in reality, is there any difference? The one who knows will see what? Do you see the water bubble, or you see only water? In fact, you see only sea. Okay, that is only sea. Where did you go? I went to sea. What are the things you saw? Do you say sometime that I saw many types of water bubbles? Unless you are a child. In fact, in this case, limited example, the lamp, this example is limited. Whatever is not a part of water, oh, say I saw many people, I saw pieces, I saw this, I saw that. So what is not water? That you highlight. But what is water? Do you say, oh, the waves, sometimes say, unusual. Today it was so windy. And because then, okay, what happened? Because of windy, lot of waves. Can you see how you approach? Even if you see many things related to water, formed out of water, but you never really say, you never visualize, or you never notice, unless there is some specific reason. So that is what is being highlighted. As it happens, so also here, there is nothing, please understand, there is no difference between one object to another object. And of course, everywhere only one thing exists, that is non-differentiated, non-duality. But what happened, he says, because of our illusion. So he says that Didha Tridha Dibhedoyam Brahmatte Parivasyate. There is some type of Brahma, there is some type of illusion in us. Because of this illusion, so it appears sometimes twofold, sometimes threefold, sometimes manifold. Somebody will say Purusha Prakriti, somebody will say Trinity, somebody will say the many things. So each time we do look at things differently, it is because of our illusion. In fact, based on the illusion, if the illusion is that strong, based on that, the situation will appear that depth. So whole life, whatever we see, just observe yourself. It is nothing but our illusion and our projects. Because if you do not see this thing very carefully, things definitely will go differently. That's why, especially in Indian context, I also request all of you, if you people can manage to read Mahabharata, it will be great, which I have done long back. If not, at least you start with this Mahabharata, whatever serial. Okay, there are a lot of loopholes, no doubt in it. But they have done a great job. Why they have done a great job? Just I am trying to tell you openly. I was going through. In fact, one of the known person told me who was connected to that. This B.R. Chopra Project Mahabharata that is continuing, who did it like 30 years back. Now, in between, so many people have tried and they have done many ways. But all others have failed. Means was not received that well, the way this 30 years old was received, now also is being received. Amazing. Even though technology, everything has changed, very ordinary way was done, but still we appreciate. Why? Interestingly, I was told that one of the screenplay, why I am talking this thing, so that you understand the situation, beautiful concept, I'll bring it. This is what one has to understand it. So one of the known persons told me, so when they wanted to write this called first storyline, screenplay, then it will come dialogue. So the one screenplayer, so the one who writes all the storyboard, one of the famous those days, this Bollywood screenplayer. So he was being, let us say, given this task. And that person read Mahabharata many times. So after reading many times, so he wrote, because first time, because he never writes dialogue somebody will take over, only screenplay he writes, he tries to put everything in like 2.5 hours, those days 3 hours, everything in the movie. So, but everybody was shocked. He said, look, I don't need any dialogue writer. I need some people who can just lift from this Vyas's Mahabharata and put it, because dialogue is there. Our job is just to translate and put it and little visualize it, nothing to touch. If we touch, it will lose its sanctity. In fact, I see this point, wherever they have tried to touch a little bit here and there, that becomes very boring. Whereas other people tried their level best to manipulate and made it more dramatically. That's why they were not received that way. Coming back to this point. If really you are a stable person, this is what, if the maturity is there, you can see the stability in every situation. That you can really understand very well in Mahabharata. Different characters do stand differently, which actually is nothing but a reflection of ourselves. As I was watching today, it's a very simple thing. Guru Dronacharya, who happens to be the teacher of everybody. Of course, he had soft corner for these Pandavas, but he had a problem. The problem was his poverty. When he was studying in a Gurukulam, that time some kings or the princes were there studying. So one of his friend said, look, I will take care of, don't worry, once I become king. But when this Guru was being blessed with a child, of course he went to meet his friend. The friend did not treat him properly. The story goes further. So he wanted to take revenge and he tried to teach, and of course this Pandavas, Arjuna especially, took the revenge and arrested that person. Now the poverty was so much in him, and especially he wanted to take care of his child. Then finally, because of that poverty, he wanted to teach to this princess of this Hastinapura. Finally he became their guru. But he lived, this is the most important aspect to highlight, that he had to live not looking at dharma or anything, only for the whoever has removed the poverty, and of course for the child. And even though he knew every time that he is doing wrong, he is in the part of wrong people, still he had to continue. And finally what happens? He gets a news that your son is no more. The moment he gets the news that your son is no more, he knew that son nobody can defeat. He wanted to reconfirm, and he reconfirms. Of course that person had to tell half lie, half truth, which is beautifully Narava Gunjari Asatha Mahata. So I know Aswattama is dead, his son. But whether it is Nara or Gunjara, whether it is human being Aswattama or an elephant. And of course he believed. But all his projection, this is the most important aspect, all his projection was on his child and on this wealth. Because who had given wealth, he was bending down and he was living for the child. When he heard that child is no more, even the child is grown up, he said, what is the purpose of holding this weapon? I am surrendering. And of course later on he was killed. Just look at yourself. This is the point I would like to highlight. That is how the life moves in your life. So whatever your object of insecurity, whatever it may be, whole life, your way of functioning, everything moves around that. And interestingly, I have seen it. Whatever is your object of insecurity, that becomes the cause of your destruction. I am repeating it very carefully. Whatever is your object of insecurity, because of which you work to overcome, and of course you overcome. And if you really do not grow out of it, managing to overcome, to prove is one thing, growing out of that is entirely different thing altogether. If you have not really grown out of that, then what happens? That particular sense of insecurity, which has been taken care of, which has been covered up in a different way, will be the cause of your destruction. That's why each one of you must try to figure it out. Try to know, try to understand what is your, or what are the main sense of insecurities that you have. Or else what will happen? You will keep diversifying. You will keep trying to see things differently according to your own issues, own, let us say, insecurities. That's why he says, Dvidha Tridha Vedoyam. That is how we keep dividing, and of course we try to interpret accordingly. Let us look at the next verse. Yad bhutam yaccha bhavyam. No. Yad bhutam yaccha bhavyam vai. Murta murtam tatheva cha. Sarvameva jagat idam. Vibrutam paramatmani. Yad bhutam yaccha bhavyam vai. Murta murtam tatheva cha. Sarvameva jagat idam. Vibrutam paramatmani. Same thing coming. So whatever we see, yad bhutam cha yat cha bhavyam. That means whatever was there, what will be also coming, and of course what is there, we have to take it in between with the chart, yat cha. Indeed, says beautifully, nothing but all are imposed on Paramatma. So use the word Paramatma means beautifully the self. Free from, we say when you say Paramatma, free from all identifications or not restricted with anything. So this body sometimes we call, this individual called as Jivatma. There's a big concept goes, let me to Paramatma word has come. So Parama, sometimes they say absolute, absolute self, some people say bigger self. So Jivatma, smaller self. So lower self to higher self, these other people do talk differently, they create another difference. That's why if you see the translation, definitely there is a lot of confusion. So here we say, this body is called, this individual is called Jivatma. So Jivatma means Atma is the same, the consciousness principle. that we are discussing, that which is everywhere, but is identified with this limited body and mind. So when it is identified with limited body and mind, we call as Jivatma. And sometimes we use the word Paramatma. So Paramatma means, sometimes Paramatma is being called also Ishwara, God. There is big confusion. You have to understand which context it has been used. So the Atma, this consciousness, the principle, is being identified with the totality. But remember, when we use the Atma as a consciousness, Paramatma also use the consciousness. There is no difference at all. So don't get confused. So if somebody says Jivatma and Paramatma are different, so that means the person says Jivatma means individual, Paramatma means the totality. But when we talk only the principle, Atma principle, that Atma, Jivatma, Paramatma, there is no difference at all. So he says beautifully that this, whatever you see, whatever was, now is and will be, not only that, with form, without form. So when it says with form, Murti, Murta, Murtam, when it brings with form and without form, it indicates that this entire world also has to go through this changing process, what we call technically as a pralaya. So everything will submerge. Again, it will start from the scratch. And he says beautifully, all are nothing. This entire universe that you see, not this world, entire universe, this galaxy and whatnot, is just a superimposed on the self. And if this is the case, let us look at the next verse. Kalpake kalpita vidya mithya jnata mrushatmika. Sorry, mithya jata mrushatmika. Etan moolam jagadidam katham satyam bhavishyati. Kalpake kalpita vidya mithya jata mrushatmika. Etan moolam jagadidam katham satyam bhavishyati. Just a statement puts it very carefully. First of all, how can you believe? How can you take it? How can you consider? And how can you take it really seriously that this universe, your projected universe, is true, or available universe that is in front of you is true? Because etan moolam, idam jagatam etan moolam, its foundation itself is based on the falsified concept. So when the foundation itself is false, how can you come to a conclusion and how can you look at or how can you treat as it is truth? It says beautifully, kalpakehi kalpita vidya. So the creation, that's how it says, the creation being the projection of the Lord. So how did the creation come to existence? You can see for yourself a small creation that you create in your dream world. Do you create a dream world? Same principle we can extend very carefully, but remember, it has got its limitations. Just I am trying to. So, the dream world happens based on your karma theory. You have experienced a lot of things, but you were not able to resolve. And those experiences gets mixed up. And helplessly you project. And when you helplessly project, you become part of it. This is called your dream. If you look at, this is the dream of the totality, the Paramatma, the God, but little different. This is the point. The difference is that when we are under the spell of dream, we are not aware of it. In fact, we are part of it. We cry, we run, we do everything. Whereas Lord also, please understand, becomes helpless. This is called, this incarnation concept comes. The God becomes helpless with reference to the creation, because the total karma pushes this creation come to existence. But the difference is that when we are under the spell of the dream world, the God is not under the spell of this his creation, this projected or this his dream world. He is free from, he is aware of it, and of course he is not carried away at all. Beautifully, same incident in Mahabharata goes, Lord Krishna, there are few things really, how they have really presented long back. That is how in every religion or whatever, when they bring any person as a God, they try to fabricate, but sometimes you see there is a lot of inconsistency. Because when you keep fabricating, definitely there will be something or other wrong. How much can you fabricate? We say very nicely. Swami Chinmayananda used to say, yes, you can fool a person for some time, but not all the time. So also you can fabricate, you can create stories, lies, and of course through that you can fool a person for time being, but definitely not all the time. However, he says beautifully, how that happens, Lord Krishna, there it says in Mahabharata, comes related to this Drona's death. Because what can I do? I am seeing this, that's what I am trying to say. In a different angle, what I look and how I look. When this Guru Drona was killed, let us say with a half lie, of course it is a lie, no doubt in it, that whether the Asatthama, his son name was Asatthama, whether the human being Asatthama means your son died, or the elephant, and of course in a low voice, elephant named called Asatthama died, but Asatthama died. So when, remember, now this Yudhishthira, who happens to be the embodiment of dharma, who has never told lie, he could not digest that he had to tell lie. Of course, Lord Krishna played his game, no doubt in it. He created the situation and he said, what is wrong in it? Now he didn't have face, this is the most important aspect. He did not have face to meet the eldest person of the family called Bhishma. And when he goes there, there is a conflict. And of course, when he says, I have told a lie. And of course, this elderly person who was lying down on the arrow bed, he could not digest. He was so angry, so upset, because he never expected that one of his grandchild could tell a lie. Impossible. And this person, impossible. And when he was getting angry, that just for this thing, how could you do this thing? That time, Lord Krishna highlights, this is the beautiful point he says. He says, had he not said this lie, then what would have happened? Yes, he is the embodiment of dharma, he is called Dharmaraja, then definitely adharma would have prevailed. The Duryodhana, who is ruler of the adharma, definitely he would have won, because the way Guru was fighting, definitely nobody would have defeated. Then what they would have written? Remember, this is the most important aspect. He highlighted this beautiful point, which is in the part of the Bhasha, that always winners write the history, not the one who is defeated. And had this Duryodhana won, what would have written? He would have presented all these people are so insecure, and he would have painted that Draupadi as a bad word. Many things they would have painted because winners has got power, has got right to write the history. Then what would have happened? We all stand for dharma. So shall we fight for dharma or shall we see where we start? But unfortunately, we always try to protect ourselves, not protect dharma. That is the problem. Each one has got, that's beautifully in some other way, each one has got one's own, standpoint. Pratigya. Because you give a word sometime, I must do it. Whether you give to your word to your father, mother, brother, sister, friend, somebody or other, or you give a word to yourself. And you want to live because of that word. Is it really worthy sometimes? Please understand, we have to live for the dharma, not with our imaginary world. But what happens, we create and we try to live. So that's what is being highlighted here. This universe is being created. This is the karma theory. So the God is not affected, but we, when create our own dream world, we are affected. And the whole universe came to the existence because of this karma theory. That's why each one has to play their own role. And God cannot distribute as God wishes. It is impossible. God has to give, or it has to come to us according to our own karma. That's why remember, what you get is your own karma. What you do, you only get that. You don't get what you have not done either. That's why if this whole universe is standing based on this projection, and that too projection of the God, and projection means definitely it is false, then how can you see the reality? How can you try to see that reality and you say that, look, this world is real? It's not possible. After discussing, now it comes from this verse number 49 to 51 to 63. It talks about the self. What is the nature of the self? Now let us read 51. Chaitanyat sarvam utpannam jagadedat characharam tasmat sarvam parityajya chaitanyam tam tum samasrayet. Chaitanyat sarvam utpannam jagat edat characharam tasmat sarvam parityajya chaitanyam tam tum samasrayet. So he tries to come to, this is the teaching, okay, all these things, after preparing the ground, says, look, what is the purpose? You have to understand yourself. And why? If you look at all the time what you do, in your life, always you give importance to many things. Only, please understand, to have your presence. You give importance to many things in your life just to create an impact, just to make sure that you are present. But in the process, you neglect yourself. You are away from yourself. So that's why always, whatever you do, you are trying to be away from yourself. And the more you are trying to be away from yourself, the more you are restless, you are frustrated. That's why he says, beautifully presents very carefully, very nicely. If you observe, all this universe, etat jagat, etat characharam, chara and achara, movable, immovable, both. So what happens? He says, chaitanyat sarvam utpannam iti. It has come out of consciousness. So if this is the case, tasmat, what you should do? Sarvam parityajya. Therefore, what you need to do? You need to give importance. I have put tasmat sarvam parityajya means give up everything. Grow out of everything. Don't give importance to all these small things, silly things in life. Tasmat sarvam parityajya. That's why I have to keep it very carefully. Therefore, you may not give importance to anything else other than the consciousness, means the you. The look, the approach must change. So when the look changes, it's like you are doing because it is to be done. So when you are doing because it is to be done, you will see the growth in you and you will not excited, you will not never get excited, nor you will get depressed. But the problem for common people is to get excited for small things. Please remember, when you get excited, definitely you will fall down. Because excitement is nothing, it is your projection is being addressed. And when projection changes, or the situation doesn't allow to fulfill or to address your projection, what happens? That's why a common person has got more frustration than elation. And remember, the life, if you take the graph of your life, good, bad, happiness, unhappiness, it should not fluctuate. It should not be the shape of a hill, remember. And of course, the peak of the hill and a valley, peak of the hill and a valley, I hope you understand. The happiness, peak, then zoom sometimes, then a valley continues, then suddenly boom, or some people nicely curve, keeps going up. That's really not life. If you want to live that sort of life, please understand, continue. I can say only this much. God bless you. Maybe coming life, you will try to see something. Your life graph should move in a straight line. Steadily, it should keep increasing. That is called life. Please understand, I have said, whenever I get a good news and without my knowledge I become very happy, wow, then what happens? After some time, psh. That's why one has to be that much aware. A good news must not excite. Bad news also must not pull you down. News is news. You have to make yourself free from all news. Let news come. Let the news go. You are just witnessing. But the problem is, you are giving so much importance to everything other than yourself, other than your growth. You want your financial growth. You want your social growth. You want your all sort of growth except your emotional growth. You want your emotional aspect to be taken care. Please understand. Emotional need to be taken care and emotional growth to happen, there is big difference. Because through everything, we do take care of our emotional need. As I was giving the example of Guru Dronacharya, such a great personality. So he took care of his emotional need, that he was poor, he was not able to feed his child. That's why he became the gurus, taught all these weapons and everything. Even though being a Brahmin, he was not supposed to, but he did it. Became the Shastra Guru, not Shastra Guru. Shastra means taught weapons. not the scriptures. Because he wanted to take care of his emotional need that he was not able to face as a father, that he wanted to give the best to his child. So each one of you just observe. Always you work, whether you go to the office, you get married or have child or do this or do that, whatever you do. Including some people to become a Swami, please don't misunderstand me. This also can be. To take care of your emotional need. To be alone, not to be alone, all these aspects. Whatever you do, in short, you want to take care of your emotional need. That is a common thing. That is, if you observe, an animal also does the same thing. Then what is the difference between an animal and you? Please understand, while taking care of your emotional need, I am not saying that you have to ignore. No, not necessarily. But remember, are you serious to grow, to see your emotional growth? Or you are only interested to take care of your emotional need? That is what this verse highlights very carefully. If you are giving importance to others, if everything is important for you, based on, of course, or related, not only based on, related to your insecurities, to your emotional need, definitely you are not going to growing up emotionally either. And if there is no emotional growth, imagine, will you be happy in your life? Will you be steady in your life? The happiness, the steadiness or the stability becomes part of your life when, remember, there is emotional growth, or else you live life like a child. At least a child is better because some innocence is there. Because of the innocence, jumps for small thing, also falls down for something. But in your case, what happens? Because you lose your innocence, your life is already complicated. To jump takes long time, but to fall down takes very small time. That's not life either. That's why may you learn, while addressing, while looking at your emotional need, see through this whether you are going to grow or not, whether there will be emotional growth or not. If emotional growth is not there, just take a back seat. Go back, take some time and work for yourself. Let us look at the next verse. Ghatasya बाह्ये यथाकाशं प्रवर्तते तथात्माभ्यन्तरे बाह्ये कार्ये वर्गेषु नित्यशः. This particular verse also has got little difference. We can say Brahmandasya, something will be there. Brahmandasya, one verse is different. Something Brahmandasya pravartate. One line comes there. So once more, Ghatas, but that reads better actually, we'll change it. Ghatasya abhyantare vahye यथाकाशं प्रवर्तते तथात्माभ्यन्तरे बाह्ये कार्यवर्गेषु नित्यशः. So again says, look, this is how you have to make yourself comfortable. That is how you have to see your growth for yourself. How? He gives the example. Just look at any object, especially gives the example of a pot, ghata. So now if you look at a especially empty pot, now in that empty pot, space is there, or in space empty pot is there, Or you can look at your house. In-house space is there. Or in space your house is there. What is the truth? Actually the truth is in space house is there. But we forget that. We say in house there is space. That's why my space, your space. We fight with each other. So he beautifully brings this point. That this pot is being pervaded with space. Both inside and outside. There is inside also space. Also outside. Similarly, this consciousness pervades the entire product world. The Brahmanda, Karya Vargesu, entire product world. This universe. Of course, inside and outside all the time, not sometimes and goes away. And of course, later on we will see, give the two examples which we will see tomorrow, how the space is a part of it. Even though it is there, it accommodates inside and outside, is not affected, untouched. So also, you need to live with everything without getting affected. How and why we will see tomorrow. Please close your eyes. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.